We know. Thank you.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Oh, hey,
You're going.
everybody.
Oh, you didn't know?
No, I didn't know.
That's what this was for, Mama.
Okay. Thanks.
That's what the thumbs up was for.
We added mist into the filming process here, and then I've got to find it on Purple Door somewhere.
It should come up.
Oh, here we are.
There you are.
Okay, you do this part.
Okay.
Hey, everybody, it's Gussie and Grim and Mist in the background.
Hello.
We decided to do our video outside tonight because why not? It's beautiful, and the view behind us is what we get to look at every night here in Port Townsend, and we just thought we'd share it with you for a minute.
Yep. And so welcome to our front yard and view of the valley below us here in Port Townsend.
Incidentally, I'm going to say this like we're on some official TV show or something.
Okay.
Did you know that one of our very own Purple Door witches, her family used to basically own this like land from here down to Cherry Street?
Yes. She and her family is pretty much generational to here, isn't it?
Right. And so if y'all know Andrea Savar, she's a very important person to us, and her family used to own part of this property. And if you want to read a really interesting series of books, there is a series that Andrea wrote, and we'll put a link here, called the
Winship series.
The Winship series, but it's about a family of hereditary witches that lived here in Port Townsend. And that's all I'm about to say.
Other than I'm going to be doing a reading of the first book
Yeah,
here real soon.
Right. We were going to do that a couple of weeks ago, and then Grim and I both came down with something. But anyways, look, we actually have a rough outline. It even says rough outline on the top because we're trying to be organized here. But one of the things we wanted to talk about was earlier today on the Purple Doors, a younger witch had mentioned that she's feeling very as if the world is kind of working against her, and she was looking for a different answer, or she was looking for a way to kind of clear that that kind of befuddling energy where you just feel like there's one obstacle after another. I wanted to address that. Right now we are feeling so some of us are feeling so isolated. I feel very much from my friends and family that are not surrounded by people that they love like I am. I'm surrounded with Grim and Siege and my cousin Amber and her 2 children and my own daughter Mist, and plus many people that we talk to online, plus animals and whatnot in our lives. But there are people that are alone out there, and I understand that feeling of isolation. I've been there before. That feeling like there's just really nowhere to go. And it also feels like one obstacle after another, after another,
and
after
it's an
another.
overwhelming loneliness feeling added on to that.
It is. And on top of all of that right now, I'm looking at my notes, what we're experiencing in the world is like, it's chaos energy. I mean, I know that the earth is healing herself. Mother Nature prevails, and nature provides. But on the other hand, if you're a human, you're experiencing a great deal of upside downness. You're experiencing a shift in your balance. You're feeling a call to home. You're feeling really out of sorts. And I guess one of the things that we wanted to talk about,
I'm just getting things set up.
Okay, is there are 2 things that could be at work here for you when you're feeling this way. One thing is that ascension symptoms that we've been talking about for a couple of months now, actually, but you know, the feeling of one foot in one world, one foot in the other world, that feeling of kind of foggy brain. You know, I think you know by now, because a lot of you are the same folks that have visited with us in the past. Hey, Sage. A lot of you are familiar with that. What we're also experiencing is something that people refer to as cognitive dissonance. And that's actually something you can look it up, Google it if you want to. But it basically describes the feeling that you
Say
get.
hi, Siege.
Hi, Siege. Basically describes the feeling that you get when you have a lifelong belief, or, you know, from childhood, that's really rooted deeply in who you are. And then suddenly, when you're presented with an alternative thought or a different way to look at things, it causes this kind of like, that can't possibly be real. Like the first time we ever heard about a school shooting, we were all, nothing like that had ever,
our reality.
it didn't fit in the paradigm of our reality. And so
You explained it to me yesterday in a really simple way with the color of tomatoes.
okay.
And do you remember that?
No.
Basically, the way
I'm
you
sorry
put
to
it.
say.
Basically, the way you put it was you grow up your
Must
entire
be really
life.
good advice.
Yeah, listen to this. This is deep.
Okay. I'll listen this time.
You grow up your entire life and you go through your adulthood knowing that tomatoes are red.
Yes.
Then you move to another country and they don't have red tomatoes, they have green tomatoes. And it takes your brain a while to replace that slideshow of what a tomato looks like.
Right.
And it causes an uncomfortable feeling in your brain.
Right.
I
Like-
just like that
That is a good example.
example. It was a good
I
example.
came up with that one.
That was you. You must have been channeling at the time.
I don't know. That's a weird one. But, you know, that's a really good example of it. But also, what's happening here in the world, I mean, those of us that are empaths, and those that, well, come on, let's just say it. We are all, at some level, if you're watching this with us right now, you are you are empathic, you are sensitive. We all have those innate abilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I channel, so I'm anything different than you. I just access the divine energy perhaps differently than you do.
I think, do you feel that most everybody has the ability to access it?
Oh,
It just
yeah.
needs training and meditation and time?
I think that there is study that needs to happen. I definitely think that there is study that needs to happen. I've been studying witchcraft my entire life. I'm a hereditary witch. I also, it was just the way I was raised by my family. But that doesn't mean that I'm a different sort of witch than you are.
Mm-hmm.
Or Mist will be, or anyone else. We're all, and
Or who you will be.
right, and I wanted to say this to clear this up earlier, and it kind of goes into my next list of things that I dropped on the ground.
Oh.
Well, that doesn't mean you have to get it. You're so sweet, though. I love you.
It's going to drive me nuts if they're down
We're giving each other a little room to grow, and he's always so sweet doing my little chores for me. But you don't have to. I'll get my paper. Look at that. Okay, look at me being sovereign. But what I was about to say is that my message, I hope, to people, and I don't always deliver it right, and I apologize for that actually, because I'm not going to proclaim that we're just Gussie and Grimm. We're not, you know.
No, this is in relationship to a talk that we had a few nights ago where you said step into your own, claim your power. And
Yes.
there were some interpretation issues.
Right, there were some interpretation issues, but I've also stepped back recently and taken a look at myself about that. And what I've been trying to convey to people, and I think I do it better sometimes than others, is that it doesn't matter what level of the ladder that you're on. If you want to consider ascension being like a ladder, or the amount of time that you spend studying, you know, herbs, or how much effort you put toward, you know, studying astrology or
Candle magic.
right.
or
It doesn't, that adds to your overall,
arsenal.
yeah, toolkit, witchy toolkit. But it doesn't mean that your way isn't as good as my way, isn't as good as his way. We're all equal in the way that we access energy. some of you, the divine energy, some of you feel really lost right now, and that's okay. I felt that way too. It's not like being a witch came along and there was a book that I read and it just sort of clicked and made sense. It's been a lifelong study, and it's been a lifelong immersion, living magic every day as much as possible.
To varying degrees of
Right.
success and failures.
Right. And did I do that? Did I do that through my whole life? No. I didn't. I hid. I was afraid of what my neighbors would say. I was afraid that my kids would be isolated. I went through a lot of the same feelings that I know some of you feel. Some of you live in the Bible Belt and feel very much isolated in that way. So there we come back around to that.
Back to isolation again.
Because one of the things I said the other day too was regarding stepping into your witchiness and claiming it. And Grim and I wanted to go back and kind of revisit that one a little bit too, because that is one of those things where it could be interpreted when I say it. Like, I want you to get out on the corner of your local downtown area and announce that you're giving out free tarot readings. That's not what I mean.
When you say step out of the broom closet, you're not necessarily meaning in society.
No, I'm talking about owning it for you in here. I'll tell you something else. There's a person on the purple door who I love dearly, and she has slowly been stepping forward into her own power, and I love it. And as I am too. I mean, I'm doing it every day. There's things that I every day I wake up with a new set of goals that I have in mind for myself, and sometimes I accomplish them and sometimes I don't. But this friend of ours, sister, has been very hesitant about being out. Even though she lives alone, even there she's worried that when friends come to visit, that they will see things that will mark her as different, and that is sad to me, because I feel like at least in our own homes we should have the sanctity to be who we want to be and who we feel compelled and called to be. So what I guess I'm saying about that, when I say please step forward and kind of own your witchy, I'm not asking you to go out and announce to the world that you are a witch and that you proclaim it loudly. Heavens, yes, if you want to, I'm behind you 100%, aren't you?
Yes, but I think it's more proclaimed to yourself.
Right. And by doing so, what you're doing is you are saying, you know, all of the knowledge that my ancestors had, all of the wisdom of the ages that is still innately within me, because I am a divine expression of God, of spirit. All of that information is there. We've lived past lives. We've lived in various incarnations, and we have information readily accessible to us. But the first step is for us to get over that hurdle and to accept who we are to ourselves, and then the people that matter. And then from there on, you have to make your next best step and decide what that is for you. Grim's holding the phone over here, so there must be a question.
It's interesting because I'm looking at your notes on what you wanted to kind of cover today, and you've got number 3 there, boxes on the shelf. And why I find that interesting is because Brandon is messaged here, I live in a box that has been locked in another box. Today it was extended another 3 weeks. I don't want to, but I think I'll snap and have a breakdown before the lockdown is over. Solitary confinement. My cognitive is in bits.
Yeah, your cognitive is in bits. And the only way... I wish I had an easy answer for this one.
It's... Oh, boy.
What I've referred to before when I talk about boxes on the shelf, and Brandon, this will fit in perfectly with what you're describing too. When we are young people, things happen to us that damage us in one way or another, or affect us in one way or another. Some of those things are happy, good memories, and some of those things are painful, sorry, or sad memories. Some of them have to do with loss of an important person in your life, or some of them have to do with sexual abuse or trauma, or things, those dark places that when you're a little kid and you don't really know how to file that away, our ego jumps to the rescue, pulls it away, stores it in a box, and puts it on the shelf.
And now we're isolated with those boxes.
Our ego's job is always to protect us. Unfortunately, sometimes the ego kind of misinterprets what the message was in the first place. Now, not always. I mean, obviously, sexual, any kind of abuse like that. I'm not saying that's in its own. That's in a box.
That's a
okay?
big box.
That's a big box, and
But you're talking about the smaller traumas throughout life, the arguments with spouses, the things that were told to you by employers
right.
or by loved ones, the personal injuries.
Right. Now, and I want to point out, I wish we had an example like in front of us right here, but there was I don't need that, baby, thank you. There was this post earlier today that I was talking about. This young woman had written this question, and there were several people, including myself, that answered.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you guys know me, at least I think you know me well enough, that I would never, if someone came to me with a problem, I wouldn't purposely poo-poo them and tell them, no, you don't need to worry about that. Sometimes I do get short-stacked, and I kind of will trying to help them, I kind of move things along a little more quickly. And I'm learning I need to slow down and be more patient in my delivery.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to this post, it was really interesting because my point of view, I thought I was helping her see that there is a method to the madness that's occurring. And as she steps through all of this, things will lighten and become more tolerable.
So you were basically saying, be patient, there's light at the end of the rainbow.
Right.
Or at the end of the tunnel.
And there were other people kind of they were saying the same thing. But this gal, because she was coming from a place of confusion and hurt at that moment. And fear. She didn't necessarily hear what we were saying. She thought we were all kind of scolding her and telling her it wasn't
a problem.
And that wasn't it at all. But the way she interpreted it and the way some of us said it, it kind of got convoluted. And that goes to say, a lot of times, some of those things on the shelf, excuse me, kids, can you please go? You're very distracting to me, so I love you both. Scootaloo. Thank you. I love them. Personal space.
Sign language going on behind the camera here was, what are they doing to each
They're
other?
And I'm so distractible anyways, and I'm like, what? What? Anyways, we were talking about the
boxes.
Yeah, the boxes. And how communication, which has been a big part of our discussion recently too, communication can sometimes cause things in those boxes. When we open the box to take a look at what's inside of it, and that box is some kind of a deep scar or memory, the people that are around us can or sometimes do trigger those memories in us, or something that brings along the thought of, oh my gosh, this happened to me before. Now, it might not be a conscious thought.
Right. So the box is the memory, the emotion, the engram, however you want to explain it. It's our self-defense mechanism, and our trigger, maybe the box is booby-trapped.
Well, the boxes are booby-trapped, that is true. The ego put it in there to store it away so it would never hurt you again. But in order to grow spiritually, you need to get those boxes off the shelf and take a look at them.
So analyze your reactions.
Analyze your reactions. And I know that there's been a lot of, gosh darn it, I mean, half the time on Facebook anymore, I'm not even really, I go on Facebook to talk to you all, but I'm really trying to stay away from a lot of those different news sources, because, I mean, one says, yes, you're locked down, you should do, like, do a lot of self-reflection. Another one says this is not the time to do self-reflection. This is the time, like, do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? It's just,
It's one of
who
those
even knows?
cases that apples are good for you. Apples cause cancer.
Right. Right. So, I forgot my point. That has to happen at least once a night when we do this. It was about communication. It was about
Unpacking the box.
unpacking the
analyzing
boxes
the
and
emotion.
analyzing the emotion. What I'm saying is, thank you, that for Grim and I, we've been going through this process for at least a year. And we feel that we've been opening up some of those really deep, dark boxes that have been at the back of the closet for a long time. You might, I think I said this the other day, you might find yourself suddenly thinking of something that you hadn't thought of in 35 years. And you go, what in the world? Like, where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Take a moment to recognize where the pain came from. Recognize that it's one of those boxes that has been on the shelf. Thank yourself for protecting you. And also let yourself know that it's okay to let those feelings go now.
Okay, so let's talk a scenario through.
All right.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to do a personal one between you and I, and that's our communication issues that we sometimes have. And
What are you talking about? We don't have communication problems.
I'm very, very easily pissed off, I guess is just the easiest way to put it, when I get interrupted throughout the course of the day multiple times. You and I get going back and forth because I'm like, okay, I'm tired of the distractions and it's starting to piss me off, and I start getting to stomping my feet. This is annoying. Rather than me stomping my feet, you're saying I should look into that emotion, that box, and analyze why being interrupted multiple times over and over again.
Yes, take some time to look at the behavior of yourself. And we actually kind of got into a little argument over this, because I told Grim the other day, and this is just something I've learned myself recently, is I can't do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't look into that box.
You can't open the box up.
I can't open the box up
You
and
can
look in it.
inadvertently hit the trigger,
Right.
The booby trap.
Right. And a lot of times when I offer readings to people, we're not just reading a tarot card. I'm doing intuitive, like medical healing. I'm accessing ancestral knowledge. We're looking at the cards for interpretations and really using all of that information to find your black boxes. A lot of them are so buried. They're behind the deflated soccer balls, the old badminton net, and the fishing gear that Grandpa donated to your house.
But they are wrapped in garland and Christmas lights to disguise them as happy things.
They can be, but not all of them are.
That's true.
Some of them are so dark and so like far back, they just look like a shadow at this point. But this is the perfect time while you're basically, on our own. We're on our own. We're basically like in our own little monasteries.
So basically,
Take the time.
Use this moment of isolation for inner exploration. There's a larger inner universe within than there is without.
There is a larger universe within than there is without. And, gosh, we would love to talk to you guys about this too. Like, if you have further questions, send us questions on a text message or even post it here. We'll try to answer as best we can.
We don't know the answers are right.
No, we don't.
But they work for us.
They work for us. So I also wanted to say, going back to the whole conversation thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know I keep going back to this, but pardon me.
Touch you?
No sneeze.
Okay.
Sometimes I feel like I talk my own language. I speak my own language. Even to Grim sometimes, we will be talking about the very same thing, but it sounds, I say it one way and he says it another way, and then we'll argue about that for a while until we figure out if we change our perception. Remember that one? Change your perspective, and then you can see it from another aspect. It doesn't even have to be the other person's shoes.
No.
Just look at it as if you were an outsider observing the conversation
Yes.
going on. And a lot of times, if you can step back and be your own mediator, together you can start going, wait a minute. We're both saying the same thing, because I'm saying let's do it on Tuesday, and you're saying let's do it sometime after Monday.
But before Wednesday.
So it doesn't, you know what I mean? If we
Yeah.
actually stop and slow down, we're always so quick. And then if any of those things trigger any of those black boxes on the shelf, forget about it. You are lost. If you have not opened that box and dealt with that issue, if that trigger gets, if something happens, the next thing you know, part of your 7-year-old self is helping to dive into that conversation.
And we don't want our 7-year-old self in that conversation.
We call that looping. But each one of us has our own unique language. We really, truly do. Just like doctors are now discovering that we're all unique and sovereign individuals, so are, biologically speaking, medically speaking, we each have our own unique set of
blueprints
that
blueprints.
medically would work for us. What might work for me to clear up coronavirus might not work for him. And I'm just using that as an example. I really don't know. But I'm saying there's a lot of individuality that has to be considered, and especially when you're talking communication. So I hope this is making sense. So far we've...
Oh boy, but when you throw yourself into a situation like a married couple now, where you say sovereign, and I think that's where a lot of couples kind of derail themselves, is because we forget that we're sovereign.
Right.
And we jump onto each other's egos.
Right.
And say, well, now we're in this together. But
right.
We got all that crap anchoring us back with those boxes.
Right. And you're my number one trigger for any ego black box I have on the shelf. It's almost like, and that's by design. I'm sure there's some contract written between the two of us that he agreed to go down this rabbit hole with me, and I'm holding him to it. But we have recently decided with each other that it's not just something that we want to suggest that you all do, is to take this time to really, if you're in a situation and you're not understanding your husband or your son or whatnot, take a minute to step away and just go think about it. What triggered it and what was it? Allow your mind to open that box.
That's it. Step to the side and allow the explorer in yourself to open that box and look at it from an outside perspective.
Right. Usually that means asking your ego to step aside. And you hear a lot of these like guru people talk about transcend the ego. It's exactly what they're talking about. If you can tell your 7-year-old self, in meditation, call that little person over to you and say, I know you were hurt and confused and didn't understand what was happening, but I do, and I've got this. Let me take this box off the shelf so we can get it dusted off, cleaned out, recycled if we need to, and you can finally rest. Because our 7-year-old self has been at this for a long, long time, as an example. So, but that's getting the ego out of the way, because that little 7-year-old ego is the one that put it in the box and put it up there. And they don't want you. You just gotta kind of.
Yeah.
I hope I'm making sense.
How do you account for? I mean, when do you open the box? Let's say you and I are in the middle of an argument and it's getting a little bit heated. How do you know? Okay, stop. There's a trigger happening here. Let's look at what's causing the trigger. Because really all an argument is of two people fighting over who's right, and the only person that's right in the end is the one that is honoring the better good of both of the people in the argument.
Right. Well, but I don't think that's always like the confusing part, because I think in most arguments, well, at least where we're concerned, a lot of the times neither one of us is right nor wrong. We both have good points and we both have differing points. It just means we have a different viewpoint,
different perspective. Right.
And then it's a matter of analyzing the other person's perspective and going, that resonates, and then being okay with that and not having to have the last word and not having to be always right. Those are all ego things attached to that. So if you in an argument can kind of step away and That's what that whole, taking a step back from a different point of view it has to do with. You can get yourself to look at it from a different point of view. You might see your own ego in action. And by ego, I don't always mean pompous kind of thing. That's not the ego I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one that
is covered in Band-Aids.
Is covered in Band-Aids, right? The one that goes sometimes because they are covered in Band-Aids. So it's accessing your truest
Yes,
self.
Brandon. Look at the box as if it's not yours. You kind of have to do that in the beginning. Kind of a detached scientific approach, I guess you can say. And as you do that, you will have to start to own that box, though. You can look at it in the beginning as a detached, not part of you. But eventually, in order to deal with it, you will have to accept it as yours. Yeah, that's a hard one, Pris. Pris is asking, how do we look inside the box if it's how we react in a situation? And that's been a very difficult struggle for me over the last year and a half or so, because I am easily triggered. I honestly can say now that I have been so bruised and battered by outside environments and my own self-esteem issues that it doesn't take much for me to go, blah! It's at that moment of blah that you have to rein it in. You have to... It's tough. The person that you're arguing with, the one that caused the trigger to explode, also has to go, okay, trigger, and take a breath and relax. And don't react in emotion over that stimuli. Because in all honesty, 99% of the time, when you're arguing with somebody, you're not really mad at the event you're arguing about.
You're arguing because they don't seem to understand your point of view.
Right. So change your point of view maybe by stepping back, looking inside of your own box, analyze why you're reacting the way you are. Go, okay, look inside of their box, take a quick little peek, then resume the conversation. And you can't do that sitting next to each other mid-argument.
No.
You do have to walk away.
You do usually have to walk away. And so that means having a conversation with that person beforehand. So set a date, set an appointment, and say, hey, Grim, you know what? I've had some thoughts about our relationship. So could we maybe go tomorrow morning and just like 10 o'clock, have some coffee together here at the table and just the two of us, undivided attention, and just talk. That's the first step. And then, oops, sorry, Blackberry. Cat is stuck. There we go.
I'm surprised this cat came back after the boom of last night.
Well, anyways, to take those boxes...
I'll tell you that story in a minute.
To take the boxes off the shelf. If you are... What now?
I want to know if I can tell a story.
You were asked not to distract Mama.
Yeah, baby.
Please.
Okay, love you.
Love you too, honey.
We're working on boundaries here at Covened Up. All of us. I hope you are too. Anyways, I got to get back to what I was saying. We were talking about Brandon, or no, somebody asked, how do you open
How
up
do you
the
look
box?
inside the box?
Right. So
Take a step back.
you need to have a clear conversation with your spouse. I'm going to just say spouse for now. You know, insert whoever, important person here. I'll just say spouse. But you need to have a conversation with them about, it's not that I think our relationship is bad or wrong. It just, we could use some tweaking, and I've noticed some things that maybe we could have a conversation about, because I think it might make it easier on us when we converse in the future.
Then it's things that you can tweak within yourself that you can accept.
Right. And I think also just to remember that to have control over your emotions is to really have power. A true witch, that's why when our children, as they were growing up, all of them expressed an interest in learning about witchcraft.
Magic. And
Yes. We've never forced any sort of spiritual path on our kids at all. They've all found their own ways. But, oh, for heaven's sakes.
We've never pushed a path upon them.
And I haven't even smoked weed tonight.
This is twice in one.
This is not a weed space out moment. It really isn't. I'm this is just my brain.
Oh, it's that ascension.
I know.
Cognitive.
Cognitive dissonance right here. Or maybe there's a black box I need to take down. No, but our children, when we were raising them and teaching them about being a witch, there's a certain level of self-control that you need to exhibit before I'm going to hand you any type of divination tool. I really dislike it when people run out and buy a pendulum because it looks fun and they have no idea how to use it. I'm quite
Not any idea how to use it or to respect the magic and the integrity of the tool.
Thank you. See, he's so much clearer than me. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Because it isn't, I mean, go out and buy your magical tools, play with them, absolutely. But learn about them and respect the magic, and also learn how to control your own emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't be like, you know, oh God, I'm so mad at him, I'm going to get my pendulum out and, yes or no. That's not the way to use a pendulum. That's just not the way to use it. And so some of our children, one daughter in particular, we just never felt like she had a whole lot of self-control
Mm-hmm.
over her anger. So it was really difficult to kind of work with her on it, spiritually speaking, because she was just in so many different, she had a lot of black boxes.
But now she's unpacking those black
is.
boxes on her own pace, in her own time,
Yep, she is.
in her own way, without her father's ripping the box lids off.
Right. So, and I don't even know how we got on that
I
topic. I
don't
hope
either.
that meant something to somebody, because...
Mary Frances, what does she say here? My boxes are...
Wait,
Oh,
I
sorry.
still haven't finished that one question, though.
I'm sorry, which one's that?
The one about how do you open the box once you
Oh.
know it's there.
Mhm.
So what I was going to say is ask your spouse to help you notice. Like, that's what Grim and I have been doing with each other when we see a pattern. And sometimes it's scary to bring it up, because we're like, this might be a tender point. And you might feel very passionately about this. You may feel very passionately about what I'm about to say, but...
Mm-hmm.
And then we share it. Also, let's not forget friends, people right now online that you feel comfortable with talking to. I've done that quite a bit, sometimes to your chagrin, but I'll say, it's just like a touchstone moment. Like, you know, is this something that, am I feeling rational here, or am I feeling irrational? Trust yourself, trust your spouse, and trust your friends.
But be willing to ask yourself,
Yeah, you have
am
to
I
be.
being irrational?
Right,
And that's a hard thing to look at. That's
Right.
part of looking inside the box.
right. I don't know if we really answered that question well enough yet. I think we're going to work on that one a little bit more.
I keep looking over there.
I know, but what's another question?
Let's see. Mary Frances says, my boxes are cool where they're at. I've looked through, printed some pics, and moved on. The scary boxes can stay dusty. You know, what I'm going to say to that myself, Mary, is when Gussie and I first met some 15 years ago, I told her about some of my past experiences in life and the traumatic injuries I had gone through. And I also told her, dealt with them. Looked through, put them on the box, put them on the shelf and said, there we go. They don't no longer have a bearing on my life. And I honestly, truly, truly believed that all through our courtship, all through our 13 times of me asking her to marry me in 13 years and her finally saying yes. And it's only now that I'm realizing that some of my reactions, some of my anger, some of my instant, I don't know how to describe it, some of just my instant emotion reactions can be traced back to those boxes that I felt very secure in being dealt with back in the day. So I'm not saying, no, you don't. You can't do it that way. There are people out there that can probably compartmentalize, take the bad memory, put it away, and not let it affect them on an emotional level, but still on a vibrational level, it's still in there. Go on.
I'm trying to figure out how to respond to this one, because let me pause and think, because I feel like I wish I could work with Mary, because Mary, reach out to me if you wanna work with me, or Grim. I'm not saying I've got any, special spell or fix all pill or anything like that. I'm 53 years old, and I have had a lot of boxes on the shelf. I'm not saying that each and every box needs to be opened. Some of those boxes, I'll be honest with you, some of them are so old that when you start getting up on that shelf, you're going to go, oh God, I don't care what's in that box.
Yeah.
And just throw it away. It's so covered in cobwebs, just throw it away.
It's the ones that cause, as Victoria did, the
knee-jerk reaction boxes, right. Those are the ones, if you are choosing to ascend spiritually, I'm saying this slowly so we can all understand it. If you are choosing to allow yourself to ascend spiritually, so let's think about that being ourselves like a hot air balloon with a basket, okay? You're standing in the basket. The balloon is your higher self wanting to help you ascend. This is the earth energy right now, changing the density of the earth, and things are accelerating right now and changing on a global scale. Perfect time. How could it be any more perfect? So here's this basket sitting on the ground. Now, we're all sitting on the ground, and you see me over here, and I'm like, oh gosh, look at that box. I need to open that box. I'm going to open this box right here and look at it. Oh God, it has to do with that time that my father called me a slut. I was a majorette in my high school marching band, and he was so shocked to see me dressed so skimpily. My father was a World War II veteran. If he was alive, he'd be 100 years old. I was a majorette in 1988. We wore not so skimpy, but kind of skimpy. That really hurt me when he did. I mean, that was my father, and that cut me to the core. But if I keep that box there in the basket with me, I'm not going to go up at all. I got to take that box, look at it. Okay, Dad, I forgive you. I know you were just a product of your era, and you didn't mean it. You didn't really think I was a slut. You were just acting out of your own anagram, your own black box. It was a trigger for him. Yeah. There was something. So I put that black box out of my basket. I recycle it to the universe. I don't let that energy stay in the basket with me, and I elevate myself a little bit. It's scary to look at the boxes. It's fucking scary. But it's also relief. And you know how when we talk about being a sovereign being, well, I'm sovereign, I'm sitting over here. You're sovereign, you're sitting over there. But sovereign meaning free from being held back by decisions or traumas that have held you in place, that keep you behaving a certain way, that keep you from putting your altar in your living room because you don't want your friends to see it.
Not even just on that level, though, but keep you from good, solid communication with your loved ones.
Yep. Yeah.
Because Sonia asked, so how do you know which box is important enough to open? And I think you kind of covered that just now with, what are you going to put in the balloon basket with you?
Right.
So you can ascend.
Right. And the tricky part about these boxes, though, I'll be really honest with you, is that you never know. You can't really plan on cleaning the closet.
No.
It's not like you're going to say, you know what, tomorrow is Friday, and Friday I'm going to clean that closet, and whatever I don't get finished on Friday, I'm going to put it in another box and take it to Goodwill on Saturday.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it happens to be...
Sometimes you have to open the same box over and over again.
Right.
And take little bits and pieces out at a time.
And then it becomes clear. But the first step is allowing yourself to realize this needs to happen. Once you accept that, you know what, you aren't perfect. You're never going to be perfect. None of us are perfect. And it's perfect that it's that way.
Perfectly imperfect.
It's perfectly imperfect. Those boxes are not... They're not like notches against who you are. They're a part of your experience in this lifetime. And those sad marks, those angry marks, those are the ones. You'll be cutting onions one day, and all of a sudden you remember slicing onions for your grandma for her favorite homemade soup. and all of a sudden you're crying and you're thinking, well, it's really just the onions. But the thing you know is you're feeling more deeply about how much you really wish you had taken the time to learn your grandma's recipe.
When I'm telling my ghost stories, a lot of the stories that I tell are from older generations of people that I wished I would have listened to more.
Right. So we're going on and on about
Yeah.
this. I hope it makes sense.
Victoria, I'm going to answer this question before I read it. And the answer that I'm going to give is you're a sovereign being. Now, the question she asked was,
Oh,
what if you don't feel worthy of ascension?
well, I'm going to correct you on something.
Okay.
Not all of us are sovereign beings yet.
Okay.
I'm not a sovereign being yet. I'm working on it.
Okay.
People that I would consider my elders, people that have been studying, lifelong like me, but a different path.
Your
And
mentors.
but the people that I would consider my mentors have a much more self-defined stance on what being sovereign means. And for me, I think I'm sovereign, and then all of a sudden something will happen, and I'm like, nope, still gotta release that old thought pattern. Still have to release that.
I see. So for you, sovereign is when outside energies stop affecting you on a negative way, in a sense.
Not even in a negative way. It's like when you can stand here,
Mm-hmm.
facing west, and raise your arms in the air, and just feel at one with the universe, without having to call in a god or goddess name, without having to make a prayer to a specific deity, or to really even
Focus on a grounding.
It's just like one of those moments of I am. And I know we've all had those. I think a lot of us have had those moments where you look out the window and all of a sudden you see something that just takes your breath away, and you're lost in that moment, and it just feels like a spiritual instance.
Mm-hmm.
And that being sovereign is being free of all of the constructs that keep us functioning as, I'm not going to say this right, I might need your help.
So the goal is, maybe in what you're saying, the goal is to become sovereign.
The goal is to become sovereign.
So when Victoria also asked, how do you know when you're ready? When you're ready to look in the boxes and start dealing with them is an indicator of when you could be ready.
I think that most of us right now, if we are walking around feeling ungrounded, and we are experiencing these ascension symptoms, and Victoria, I know you are, because when you came over to our house months and months ago, what you were describing was already the beginnings. Like, you were already in this process. And
We just didn't recognize it for what
yeah,
it was.
I didn't know what it was at that time yet either, to be completely clear. But I think, oh geez, what was the question?
Is she ready? How do you know when you're ready to ascend, to start that process?
So that's the thing, is that we're already in the process. We're already doing it.
So it's a matter of how high do you want to ascend?
Yes, it's a matter of this go around. You have a chance to open boxes and take a look at them. You have a chance to release some of these burdens. I know it's hard to do. You might even start listing some of the things that you know bother you,
And figuring out why.
and figuring out why. And I know that's hard. I wish I had.
I wish we could open our doars and say, come
Come stay with us. Go under the
Victoria.
tent. Go under the tent.
Come under the tent with us, Victoria. Mary has a definition of sovereign that you might want to...
Yes, Mary Frances is exactly right. She says sovereign means being yourself without something else influencing your reason.
Yeah.
And that's it. Now, I very tentatively step around that whole God, goddess concept there, because I know a lot of you that are Wiccan or Christo-pagan, or maybe you follow, maybe you're satanic, whatever path you happen to be on right now. A lot of us connect with a deity or some type of a elemental spirit or whatnot that kind of compels us forward. But I want what I'm trying to say, and this is where it gets iffy, and I sound like kind of preachy. I haven't sorted my way through this whole process yet either. But the end result being those constructs, Christianity, Wicca, be it Gardnerian or whatever kind of Wicca you're talking about, anything to do with Judeo-Christian, any kind of construct that is man-made, religiously speaking, isn't necessarily, I'm going to say
The
it
end all be all.
right. Like, to be able to not say, dear God, but to recognize that you are already a divine
Connection to source.
you're already a divine interpretation in a physical body right now. I know it's really deep.
More on that with another talk later,
Yeah.
I think. Because
Yeah.
we get a lot of questions and we see a lot of online debate and on what it means to be religious versus spiritual. And I don't think there is a right or a wrong. You can follow any deity you like.
Right.
For you, it's real and it's valid.
Right. But to get to the point where you realize, I guess maybe this will be the last thing I talk about because I feel like we've gone on too long. And people are probably, but when I think of all of us being vibrational energy, here's my vibration. This is Gussie Dup right here. There's Grim. We do this all the time, right? We're on, and this vibrational line, it goes on and on. It doesn't stop. It might hit here and go up a little bit and around here. We're all connected that way. Who I am is defined by him also. His perception of who I am. Your perception of who I am all combines to determine who Gussie Dup is. Plus my own internal perception of it.
So red is red based on the viewer of red.
Right. What might be actually red to me, like true cherry red, might look like violet blue to you. I mean, it really is a matter of what you learned.
Right.
Not done yet. So let's say I love to work with Hecate. Here's Hecate's vibrational energy. Now, whether or not that mythos is true or not, the Hecate thing, if there was actually a person named Hecate, who knows? That is such ancient history. But what she stands for to me is some of the energy that I connect to here on this level right now on this plane. So when I do my praying, I connect with her vibrational energy and I sync it with my own for that moment, so that I am at that moment Hecate. I am embodying her energy. I'm using her energy to outwardly express myself and to affect my surroundings.
And to affect people's perception of you at that time.
Right. But ideally, my vibrational energy I should just be able to go whoop and connect to what my higher self is without having to go through channels. I shouldn't have to go through the Pope to get to God. I shouldn't have to go through Hecate to access the higher power. Do you understand what I mean? So to become sovereign
Take out the middleman.
to really get to the point where, and I'm going to bring it back around to what Victoria said, that worthiness thing. I struggle with worthiness too. And heck, sometimes I get nervous about doing these talks because I'm like, I'm nothing special. We're just us, and I don't know all the answers, but I do know we spend a lot of time talking and analyzing and listening and sharing, and that's why we choose to do this with you guys.
It
so
helps
that maybe
us.
it helps.
It helps us, so we're hoping it's helping you on some level as well.
Right.
We're being told that they're watching. You know, we're still listening. We're listening. Still listening.
Oh, okay.
So I guess we'll just watch that number up there that says that, and as it starts to fall, we'll know.
All right, and if it gets dark in the background and there's just like the glow off your glasses,
Okay.
we'll know it's probably too late.
We can start another porch fire.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Little diversion from the story here. Last night, Grim and I are asleep. Well, nearly asleep. the kids are asleep, and Amber's asleep in her room, and we're all settled in. It's probably 11:30.
Yeah, about that, probably.
And all of a sudden, we hear this big boom,
Shook the
and the house shook, like boom, shake. And it was still, like super quiet. There wasn't a sound. And then all of a sudden,
I jump out of bed.
yeah, he falls flat on his face because he tripped over the laundry basket that's in my room. Because I don't want you to think my house looks perfect. But anyways, he falls like, and I'm like I'm worried something. I'm like,
Somebody upstairs?
I can't get past him. It's completely dark in our room. I don't want to trip on him. Is everybody okay? And we come out, and there's a fire on our front porch right outside of our kitchen window. It was weird.
Yeah. Come to find out, I had taken a paint bucket, well, a 5-gallon bucket out of the back of the car that had some spray cans in it for painting. We're redoing our motorhome. And it had some paper towels and whatnot on that. And unfortunately, a cigarette got thrown into that bucket just before bedtime. And decided to blow up the paint cans. And people 3 blocks away called 911.
We were really fortunate because the fireball went up and shot over. The girls could see the fireball from their room. And
we're on the other side of the house.
yeah, and so we're just really thankful.
Not a bit of damage other than a little melted 5-gallon bucket plastic on a...
Yeah, and the funny part is here's some synchronicity for
Yes.
you. We just got wood delivered for this decking yesterday because we're going to replace the decking on this front porch. So it's over there in the yard, and now it's covered in that white stuff that you use when you use a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
And a bunch of green things and melted plastic. But we're all safe. And we got to meet some of our neighbors at a safe distance last night at midnight.
Yes, there was some
And-
social distancing.
And some of the policemen in the area and some of the local firemen.
And 2 ambulances.
And 2 ambulances.
It was a really loud boom.
It was.
It really worried a lot of people.
Right. And the funny part is I'm hoping they're not thinking we're doing some like weird
I know,
witchy
we already have
sacrifice
so many
thing.
people drive by the house. I mean, we live on a little dirt dead-end road in town, but it's a road that even the police said, where?
Yeah. You can't really find us on Google Maps.
But people have found this house, and they drive by and they look at the skulls hanging from the front porch.
Well, and we have a sign that says
Yeah,
House of the Witches.
we've
But
announced
I
it.
mean that's that.
So now we've got the witches living here blowing things up.
Yeah, at midnight. I was like, really? Come on. We had people protesting this is a couple of months ago now,
Yeah.
but for a while, there was a protest group that would stand, not on our corner here, but just around the corner, like on an L, and they were protesting with signs that said, no more cults. We're like, gee, I wonder why you picked this location.
Yeah. And the
That's been
minister of
funny.
the local church knocking on our door.
We told him we keep a Bible on the altar, and he was really shocked.
He was shocked about that. Well, not on the altar, but in our book of important.
Yeah, we have-
shelf of important books.
We have books that we kind of move in and out that we use,
Mm-hmm.
and we've used the Bible for here and there.
Well, there's so much information in that it's
It
fun
really
to
is.
read.
It is.
So, anyways, yeah, Kim, better than a meth lab in the hood. Just
Oh God! Oh my God!
That is so
That never
funny.
even crossed my.
That's funny. Thanks, Kim.
Oh no! I got a new black box. Oh no!
That was funny.
That's awful because I'm always, I try to say that I don't really care what other people think about me or us, but really I truly do. And I really hope they didn't think it was a meth
No,
lab.
if they thought it was a meth lab, the police have been driving by 30 more times today. Chris said, again, so getting rid of the boxes means getting rid of feelings and emotions that don't let us act in the world or be our higher selves. And that's essentially what it is it's dealing with those anchors, those emotional anchors that are keeping your box from letting you go, right?
Right. Well, let me see how I can Let me see this one more time. So getting rid of the boxes means getting rid of feelings and emotions that don't let us act in the world to be our higher self. Okay. Yes, I think
Will you take that?
I think you're right. The way you pronounced or said that. Let me just say. Opening the boxes. They thought it was a witch's fire ritual. They may have. Anyways, opening the boxes means not getting rid of the feelings. So I want to go back one more step. I was abused when I was a child. On a number of occasions, but one of them was by a fellow from our church who was the custodian. Hi, Siege.
Say hi, Siege.
Hi,
Hi,
why you do
Siege.
that? I'm off camera, you guys.
You want to be on camera?
No, that wasn't.
Okay.
Tiptoes, so you guys
Tiptoes.
can have your show.
Love you, Siege.
Love you.
We'll talk about your bike later.
Siege is getting his motorcycle ready for the season, so he's been off doing that. Anyways, it's not so much getting rid of the feelings. It is getting to the point where you're okay with the feelings. Like, the man that molested me when I was a little girl, I've come now to be able to forgive him for what he did, because I know now that he wasn't in his right mind. I don't think. Who could do that to a child? Plus, at least in my opinion, that is not healthy mental health. That is not right. I know that there are people that might argue that, and so be it. But I don't believe that anything to do with a child in that regard is healthy in any manner. And I will go to my grave saying that. But I did get to the point where I don't forget what he did. I don't forget it. It's a part of me.
And it still does weave itself in and out of your emotional reactions.
It still does, but not like it used to.
Right.
I used to have a problem. If I was intimate with someone, I would see his face or feel his hands. It was a PTSD trigger. It was a, and I know if any of you have felt that way or experienced that same thing, it doesn't matter how much you love the person you're with. If that is triggered, you're suddenly not just with him anymore. You're experiencing this other really bad connection that you've had in your past. And no matter how you try to fight it, it's still there. Put it in a box and put it away, it's still there. But if you can get to a point where you can open that box and really think about that person, it doesn't mean you have to like that person. And I'm not saying forgive them for what they did because it was okay. I'm saying forgive them because they didn't really act with a clear mind. And if you can't forgive them, at least acknowledge that that incident did affect you. And usually everything happens for a reason. If you believe in the whole sacred contract theory, my sexual abuse as a child did happen for a reason. Sounds horrible, but whatever lesson I needed to learn, that is how I
And even if it
chose
wasn't
to
a
learn it.
sacred contract situation, it still is, how did you choose to learn from that episode or react to that episode
Right.
as you go through life?
Right. So do I want to continue seeing his face or smelling his breath or feeling his hands when I am intimate with my husband? Or do I want to open that box, get that box off the shelf, dealt with, so that I can move on in peace, in my own strength and power, to not let that have any control over me anymore?
You choose the emotional
I
response.
choose it. Yes.
The emotional response isn't chosen for you.
Right.
So I think that's probably,
Does that make sense, you guys? I hope that makes sense, because I feel like we should write that down.
yeah, Rose, it really is. Rose is saying it's to no longer resist the plethora of emotions, but to go into allowing in order to feel them resolved. You have to be able to go through the
Yes.
process of resolution with them.
Right.
And that's not going to happen on your first crack of opening the box.
Well, it could.
It could, but the deeper, the older, the harder the emotional trauma is, the harder that box is going to resist being opened.
Right. And like Mary said, that box is up on the shelf. I don't need to look at it. Not going to take it down. No way. No how. I hope you do, Mary. I'll help you. I will help if I can.
You know, and now that we're, you know, for the last, I'm going to say, year and a half or so, you and I on emotional, spiritual, financial, business, almost every level of our lives has been nothing but an emotional unpacking of black boxes, trigger after trigger after trigger. And about the time we think, well, we've dealt with that one, another situation arises, and it's like, good gods, how many more mountains do we have
It's
to
like
climb?
those waves we've talked about.
Yes.
Those huge waves. You can either, when you're standing in the water, and I hope Casey's listening because this might help. If you're standing in the water and you're on the, on the ocean or a big lake where the waves can get quite large. If you're standing there and this big wave is coming right at you, you can either stand strong and let it hit you and wash all around you, or you can let yourself float on the top of the wave and just ride it out with the wave. Now, it might take you a little further,
A little longer.
but it's easier in the long run to just kind of ride it out instead of going, no, in this particular instance.
But as far as, like I was saying, though, is it seems like a mountain is always being thrown in front of us.
Yeah.
And you've seen that with people posting online.
Right.
What I'll say to that is, by dealing with those black box issues, those triggering moments, the more you can get that under control, the less surmountable, less daunting those mountains become. When you're not dealing with the emotional baggage, the challenges that are thrown in front of you are now just the challenge of what's thrown in front of you, not what was thrown at you 20 years ago.
Right. The best feeling, I think can we end it after this
Yes.
one? I want to say something, and I want to say it on this note because I love you.
I love you too.
One of the best feelings that I have, having worked on this with myself and working on our communication together, I love it when a situation arises and a button gets pushed on either him or me, or maybe both at the same time, and our first instinct is, and we look in each other's eyes and we go, oh yeah, we got a better way to handle this now. It's like so refreshing to see your partner's eyes go, uh-huh. Now, we're also lucky because we have each other and we're both spiritual people. There are folks out there that their spouse is appreciative of what they do or understanding, but not necessarily on the same spiritual path. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a conversation about these boxes, because that's not a spiritual thing. That is a human condition thing. That is something that all of us experience. And I don't know anyone that gets, to adulthood without boxes on the shelf. We just got to help each other out as much as we can. And I appreciate you helping me with my boxes.
I appreciate you helping me with my boxes.
And we appreciate you guys helping us with our boxes too.
Yes.
Because you do. And that's that.
So how do you end it?
Stay magical, everybody.
Stay magical. And thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Become the water.
Become the water. That's right.